Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping back nearly a century to examine a problem that, well, has only grown more urgent in our world of accelerating change.
Hmm.
We are diving into the work of a political scientist named Graham Wallas, who, all the way back in 1926, identified this monumental imbalance in what humans can do.
It's a really powerful idea. It's this tension between our power and our control over that power.
Right.
Wallace saw that humanity had just, vastly increased its power over nature. Our chemists, our engineers, they were doing things that were just inconceivable a generation before. We basically mastered the material world.
And this is really the whole point, isn't it? That massive increase in technical power was not matched by an increase in the control of that power by thought.
Exactly. We got incredibly good at building things, including, war machines, but we were completely incapable of preventing war.
We could move goods around the globe, but we couldn't figure out a stable interracial world policy.
And Wallace looked at politics, at economics, and just saw intellectual chaos.
It's the same chaos we see today, just amplified by the internet, by globalization. So we don't just need better thinking on specific problems, we need an improved art of thought itself, a whole new skill set.
And that's the mission for this deep dive. We want to see how modern psychology, through Wallace's eyes, can be genuinely useful for a working thinker, right now.
And he had this great analogy, right, about cooking.
He did. He said the science of thought in the 1920s was like the science of cookery in 1855. We had these empirical rules that work, these recipes, but we barely understood the chemistry behind why they worked. The art was way ahead of the science.
Okay, so if we want to build a better art of thought, where do we start? Wallace says we have to get rid of some old metaphors first.
Immediately. We have to ditch the really pervasive but simplistic mechanist view of the mind.
The idea that emotion is the power and reason is the machine.
Precisely. That instinct is like the thermodynamics of an engine, and intelligence is just the inert machine that, carries out the commands. The physiologist Sherrington even said the mind was actuated by instinct but instrumented by reason. Reason was just the servant.
That model just feels so limiting. It's like your conscious mind is just there to organize the footnotes after the real work is done somewhere else. It takes away all the initiative.
It misses the fundamental initiative of life itself. So Wallace replaces that with what he calls the Hormist conception.
Okay.
Instead of a single machine, the human organism is an imperfectly integrated combination of living elements.
An imperfectly integrated combination. I like that. What does that actually look like for our brains?
Well, think of it less like a computer CPU and more like an internal committee or an ecosystem. Wallace used the example of phagocytes, the white blood cells, which have some independent initiative but still cooperate for the body's health.
So all the parts of our mind, instinct, emotion, intellect, they all have their own agency in a way.
Yes. And the thinker's job isn't to just follow orders from the subconscious. It's to actively coordinate this really complicated, multifaceted system.
That makes so much more sense. It explains why our intellectual work can feel so inconsistent. Sometimes you're brilliant, sometimes you're just chaotic.
It does, and this gets to the core challenge. We have to let go of this common sense idea that consciousness and will are these simple, absolute things. They're just not.
Consciousness varies.
Widely. From the full focus we feel right now down to these fringe areas of, fore-consciousness or co-consciousness.
And the problem of control is even stickier, isn't it? I mean, you can tell your hand to move, but you can't tell your pulse to slow down.
Exactly. And this is critical for the thinker. The highest forms of thought, the ones that create genuinely new ideas, are imperfectly controllable by direct effort of will.
You can't just will the solution to a complex problem to appear.
You can't. If we could, we just need discipline, not an art. It's because we can only nudge the system that we need to understand the process.
Okay, so let's get into that process. This is the operational core of the idea. Wallace looked at thinkers like Helmholtz and Poincaré and found this logical four-stage process in every great creative achievement.
This is the structure we can actually use. It starts with preparation, and it ends with verification. Those two frame the whole thing.
Preparation is more than just gathering facts, right?
Much more. Preparation is all the conscious, voluntary effort. Accumulating knowledge, yes, but also dividing up the field of inquiry, organizing your material, and this is crucial, adopting a definite problem attitude.
The Aufgabe, as the Germans call it.
Right. You have to consciously formulate the exact question you're trying to answer. If you don't, the rest of your mind doesn't know what to work on.
So the key to preparation is just relentless rigor.
That rigor provides the fuel, and it's mirrored at the very end of the process in verification. That's the conscious effort of testing the idea, reducing it to its final defensible form.
So you separate the flash of the idea from the proof of the idea.
Exactly. Poincaré was really clear about this. He said, all we can hope for from these inspirations is a point of departure. The hard calculations, the testing, the rewriting, that's all verification.
There's that great quote from Huxley in here.
Yeah, quoting Bacon, truth comes out of error much more rapidly than it comes out of confusion. A thinker needs to be absolutely and thoroughly and persistently wrong until they knock their head against a fact.
I love that. We're so often afraid to commit to a direction because we might be wrong, but Wallace is saying the real danger is just confusion. Be wrong, be clear about it, and you'll find the truth faster.
It's the highest form of intellectual honesty. Now, the two middle stages, incubation and illumination, that's where the magic happens.
And the mystery.
And the mystery. So stage 2 is incubation, the rest stage.
This is where you stop thinking about the problem, but does rest just mean, stop working?
It takes two specific forms. One is shifting your conscious effort to completely different subjects. This is the time-economizing method. A writer puts down a tough chapter on Monday, works on something else all week, and comes back fresh on the weekend.
The mind's been working in the background?
Yes. The second form is actual mental relaxation. But here's the warning for all of us today. For really severe intellectual work, mere industry can be a hindrance.
Just staying busy for the sake of it.
Constant passive consumption, endless reading, what he called the unrelieved toil of the Bishop of London who worked from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day. That can stifle incubation.
That sounds just like modern burnout. We keep the machine running all day, convinced more input equals more output, but we never give the subconscious a chance to run its own calculations.
If you deny the gap, you deny the process. You need that period of disengagement for the subconscious to reorganize all that material you prepared so meticulously.
Which brings us to the breakthrough, stage 3, illumination.
The famous flash of genius, the instantaneous, unexpected appearance of the happy idea.
But Wallace warns us not to focus on the flash itself because it's too brief.
Right. The key to influencing the process lies just before the flash. It's the experience of intimation.
This is the part I find most fascinating, that fringe-conscious feeling, that sense that something is coming even if you can't see what it is yet.
Intimation is the crucial event. It's what the civil servant told Wallace. I often know that the solution is coming, though I don't know what the solution will be.
This is where the art part really comes in, isn't it? The delicate control.
It is. You can't focus too hard or you'll crush it. But you can't ignore it or it'll just vanish.
There's that wonderful metaphor from the poet Robert Graves.
It's perfect. From his poem, A Pinch of Salt, he says, "Poet, never chase the dream, but when he nestles in your hand at last, close up your fingers tight and hold him fast." You have to notice the intimation and protect that developing thought before it retreats.
It's the highest form of intellectual awareness. So we've got the mechanism, the 4 stages. What about the fuel for the system? Emotion and habit.
Right. And emotion, or affect, is another area where you have to be indirect. If you try to command an emotion, just will yourself to be inspired, it doesn't work.
You fail.
Yeah. The psychologist Titchener found that if you focus directly on, say, pleasantness, the feeling eludes us and disappears. It's a paradox.
So how do creative people get around that?
By using anchors. They associate the emotion with a vivid, durable sensory image. Milton said poetry should be simple, sensuous, and passionate. The simple, sensuous image is what allows the passion, the emotion, to be held onto.
It gives the feeling some stability.
Exactly. And Wallace singles out humor as a really important intellectual tool.
Not just a social thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Humor, which Hobbes called sudden glory, is intellectually invaluable. It's a pure burst into a new train of association. It just clears away all the rigidities, the dead pedantries we impose on our own thinking.
Humor is intellectual decluttering. I love that.
It forces you to see the absurdity in your own mental ruts. I mean, think of that anecdote from Logan Pearsall Smith, the goat. He writes about the terror of realizing mid-story that he might be telling this one story automatically every time goats are mentioned.
Oh, that hits home.
That flash of self-recognition, spurred by his own humor, is what breaks the pattern.
I think we all have that one story, that one piece of data we just deploy without thinking. We mistake the habit for relevance.
And that's the habit taking over the intellect. Speaking of habit, Wallace gives this fascinating contrast between two intellectual giants, Herbert Spencer and John Stuart Mill.
2 totally different ways of managing their energy.
Totally. Spencer was the master of relaxed mental energy. He cultivated a habit of slow, unforced, almost passive development. Conclusions would just arrive unawares.
But the risk there is decline in energy over time.
Right, because he wasn't actively stoking the fire. And then you have Mill, who was like a high-intensity knowledge worker. He maintained his energy through an active habit, never abandoning a puzzle, never allowing obscure corners of a subject to remain unexplored. He used intense, focused effort to clear the decks.
So for you listening, that's a key question. Are you a Spencer who needs that slow background processing, or a Mill who needs to relentlessly clear the backlog? You have to know your style.
And it feeds into this idea of the correct stroke. It's not just about intensity, but the kind of effort. You can bring all your energy to a task, but not all your intellect.
Like William Morris, the brilliant artist, trying social criticism.
Yes, the work lacked the necessary rigor. It was energy without the right kind of intellectual precision.
So given the fire hose of information we deal with today, what's the most practical habit Wallas recommends?
It's the habit of constantly watching and recording your fringe thoughts. Hobbes carried a notebook just for those thoughts that darted into his mind. You have to write the idea down to get it off your mind.
Which is so essential now. Our daily scrolling through news feeds is basically training in the bad habit of mildly enjoying and completely forgetting an infinite series of disconnected ideas.
It is. If you don't capture that little flash of insight, that intimation, it's just gone forever.
So, the art of thought is this delicate, conscious coordination of all of it. Preparation, incubation, illumination, verification, emotion, habit.
Ethical system.
And this brings us to his final and I think most provocative application. Looking at national cultures through this lens. The English ideal of muddling through versus the French ideal of logic.
It's a fascinating comparison. The English tradition, with people like Lord Selborne talking about a glorious incapacity for clear thought, it allows for that subconscious feeling, for adaptation. It's a kind of political incubation.
Relying on a half-unconscious sense of things.
Exactly. It's iterative, it's pragmatic, kind of like the agile approach to government.
Test and adapt, even if it looks messy.
Whereas the French ideal, promoted by thinkers like Poincaré, valued consistency above everything. They wanted pure logic. They demanded guarantees against polynodies, against changing your mind.
Yeah, a classic waterfall methodology. Highly structured, logical, and very resistant to change.
And both have huge risks. The English muddling can be slow and neglect rigor. The French logic can crystallize a flawed premise into an unbreakable, destructive system if the foundation is wrong.
So for us today, facing our own complex problems, what's the takeaway? Do we follow that stern logic of verification or rely on the half-unconscious sense of illumination?
I think the answer is that the wise thinker has to combine the strengths of both and avoid the errors of both. We have to aspire to integrate that logical consistency with subconscious adaptability.
So if we manage to elevate this art of thought, what does Wallas hope for as the ultimate cultural standard?
He hoped that in the future, we might build monuments not just to the goddess of reason, but to Psyche, the goddess who presides over the wise direction of the whole thinking organism.
A whole system.
No, the whole system. And that shift demands we extend our concept of morality. It's not just about technique. It's about cultivating intellectual virtues.
Intellectual virtues.
Integrity, open-mindedness, the courage to be wrong, the patience to wait during incubation, the thoroughness for preparation, and maybe most importantly, the humility to recognize the limits of our own conscious control. That's the final test.
Right.